Mr. David Mulroney. Our honorary degree recipient today is one of Canada's most accomplished diplomats with a distinguished three-year decade career bridging Canada with countries around the globe. David Mulroney's dedication to the Foreign Service has included senior appointments in Ottawa, Kuala Lumpur, China, and Korea. He served as Canada's senior official for Asia-Pacific Cooperation and as the Executive Director of the Canada-China Business Council. Mr. Mulroney held a long-standing role as Associate Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, as the Prime Minister's personal representative to the G8 Summit, and as Foreign and Defense Policy Advisor to the Prime Minister of Canada. In Ottawa, Mr. Mulroney led the Privy Council office as the Deputy Minister responsible for the Afghanistan Task Force, overseeing interdepartmental coordination of all aspects of Canada's engagement in Afghanistan. He also served as Secretary to the Independent Panel on Canada's future role in Afghanistan. Mr. Mulroney served as the Ambassador of Canada to the People's Republic of China from 2009 to 2012, and widely attributed to his leadership the business, cultural, and educational relationships between Canada and China have progressed very significantly, both in breadth and depth. He brought a fresh, innovative perspective to the Foreign Office in China that has expanded tremendously the digital reach of our embassy. Thanks to his tireless efforts, the ambassador role in China is now considered Canada's second most important foreign service post, behind that of the United States. Mr. Mulroney's impact in bringing together high-ranking Chinese and Canadian leaders has transformed a cold relationship into one where the Prime Minister was offered and accepted a pair of panda bears on a 10-year loan as a symbol of the deepening ties of friendship between our two countries. With Mr. Mulroney's support during his tenure as ambassador, tremendous progress was made at Western University in expanding our relationship, particularly with the West China Hospital School of Medicine and Sichuan University. Mr. Mulroney has been critical in ensuring the participation of individuals from Western in meetings with high-level Canadian and Chinese education and government leaders, including the Governor-General of Canada, Michel Jean. Mr. Mulroney is now a distinguished senior fellow at the University of Toronto's Munk School of Global Affairs. His humanity, enthusiasm, and intellect are all evident in his compelling new book, Middle Power, Middle Kingdom, What Canadians Need to Know About China in the 21st Century. Mr. Mulroney is an ideal role model for graduates today, dedicated to international cooperation, peace, and prosperity for all citizens. He has strengthened relationships on behalf of our great country, both individually and at the highest levels of government around the globe. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor and in the name of the Senate, I ask you to confer the degree Doctor of Laws, Honoris Causa, upon Mr. David Mulroney. Thank you.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as Chancellor, I admit you to the degree Doctor of Laws, Honoris Causa. Congratulations, Dr. Mulroney. On behalf of all assembled here today, I should now like to invite our newest alumnus, Dr. David Mulroney, to address Convocation.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, graduands, and guests, I'm deeply grateful for your kindness and generosity in including me among those receiving honorary degrees this year. I know, and this has been said, that I'm receiving this in part because I decided early on that education would be a priority for me as ambassador in Beijing. Visiting universities in China and in Canada, and sitting down to talk with students in both places was central to my mission. But my recognizing that education is a powerful point of connection between Canada and China was not completely delinked from more self-interested objectives. A big part of my job as ambassador involved helping people in China to better understand Canada. It didn't take me long to grasp that the very best way to introduce the Canada that we know and love, the Canada of great and tolerant minds, of art and culture, science and technology, innovation and entrepreneurship, is to start with universities. I could tell my Canada story more effectively by pointing to the work and example of the illustrious Canadians I came to know through the Canada-China Education Network. I mean people like Dr. John Denstead, my host and guide here at Western. Thanks to John and to Western, Canada came to be seen as a privileged partner on the campus of the West China Medical University, which includes one of the largest hospitals in the world and is an emerging center of medical research. And I deeply appreciate the leadership shown by President Chakma, who, in addition to making Western more present in China, and China more present at Western, has been such a compelling spokesperson for the importance of thinking of education in international terms. He reminds us that our future development, prosperity, and well-being depend on being open to the best students and professors that the world has to offer, and that we should see this as a two-way process, welcoming even more students here in Canada, and importantly, encouraging more Canadians to study abroad. But as honored and as grateful as I am today, I'm also a little wary. Commencement speakers are by definition in the advice-giving business. That can be a seductive, almost intoxicating opportunity, but it's also fraught with danger. Perhaps the most famous advice giver in literature is Polonius from Hamlet, whose advice to his son Laertes includes several sensible directives such as, "Neither a borrower nor a lender be," something of a mantra for many politicians today, and "To thine own self be true," which is also routinely endorsed by political leaders, if less often practiced. But we don't remember Polonius for his good advice. We remember him as a sententious windbag. He can't even die without making a short speech. "Oh, I am slain." Come with advice. The working title of my talk is David Mulroney's Two Seemingly Contradictory Secrets for Happiness and Success. But I want to avoid the Polonius label. I don't want my future Wikipedia entry to include the words sententious or windbag. So I wonder whether we might strike an agreement. I'll share my two seemingly contradictory ideas with you today, but I'll do this on a strict need-to-know basis. In the unlikely event that you're asked about my remarks, you can simply say that it had something to do with Shakespeare and China, but that national security considerations prevent you from saying anything more. Having thus sworn you all in, allow me to proceed. The first of my two secrets is keep the key to the library. You are about to become distinguished graduates, and I salute you. But it is important that you think of today's ceremony as representing transition rather than termination, a point of departure on a journey that has continuity, meaning, and purpose. You are probably feeling right now that your university education, whatever your field, has filled your head with facts. And it may seem to you that the challenge ahead is to try to slow the steady leakage of those facts and information out of your magnificent brains as the years pass. Good luck with that. What a university education really does is to make learning habitual. You have been equipped with the tools, and it is hoped the inclination to continue to read and to question and to learn. Not everybody chooses to do that. You will find that continuing to encourage your curiosity and to deploy your critical faculties offers you a tremendous advantage in life. Reading broadly and cultivating a range of interests makes you better at whatever you do. My strongest officers in the embassy in Beijing were not necessarily the best Mandarin speakers or the most brilliant sinologists. Instead, I valued most those who were animated by intellectual curiosity and who were capable of making creative connections, those willing to challenge our Canadian assumptions and to keep their admirably open minds brimming with new ideas. They weren't afraid to unshackle themselves from desks and computers, to see things for themselves, to actually talk to people. Deng Xiaoping called this seeking truth from facts, or better still, crossing the river by feeling for the stones. But there's another reason for keeping your key to the library, for maintaining your connection to the intellectual community that the university continually replenishes. At its best, this community offers an alternative to a more dreary modern reality, a world that is increasingly partisan, where invective takes the place of rational argument, a world closed to dialogue, and as a result, often closed to new ideas. I have long been inspired by an anecdote from the preface to Edith Hamilton's wonderful book, The Greek Way, which celebrates the determination of the ancient Greeks to stay focused on the higher and better things. What, as Hamilton reminds us, Socrates called the region of purity and beauty and unchangeableness. Hamilton mentions a scholar in Paris who, in the immediate aftermath of France's humiliating defeat by Prussia in 1871, welcomes his students to the Republic of Letters, a place where there is neither Frenchman nor German, dedicated solely to the pursuit of truth in all her manifold aspects. Fittingly, the professor's welcome serves as an introduction for these French students to a lecture about the great German master Goethe. So keep the keys to the library, continue to develop and refine those minds that have been opened here. My second secret is to know who you are and what you stand for. Let me tempt fate and channel Polonius. To thine own self be true. This may seem to conflict with my first suggestion that you remain open-minded, inquisitive, dispassionate, and scholarly. In his opening lecture to the introductory course Philosophy 100 at St. Michael's College in September 1973, Professor Tom Lang directed his students, my 18-year-old self included, to an unexpected source of inspiration. We talked about Robert Bolt's preface to his play A Man for All Seasons, which traces the downfall, trial, and execution of Thomas More, a brilliant Renaissance writer and thinker and a deeply skilled, subtle, and experienced public servant. Professor Lang was starting us on a somewhat circuitous year-long examination of how the essential nature of a thing, what makes a dog or a book, relates to the appearances and impressions that emanate from that thing. He was preparing to get us on the road to ancient Greece, to Socrates, and to Plato, and to the analogy of the cave. Bolt's play celebrates a man who was able to distinguish between his public image and his innermost self. More's public narrative described someone who had become one of the most famous intellectuals in Europe, someone who wore the chain of Lord Chancellor of England, someone who reveled in being called the king's good servant. It would be easy to see More as the sum of these distinguished parts. But he was ultimately faced with a moral dilemma that penetrated the cloud of reputation and image. He was asked to agree to something, a controversial divorce for the king, that went against his most important beliefs. More, who early in the play talks about using his lawyerly wits to hide within the thickets of the law, is ultimately driven into the open and confronted by the ultimate existential question, yes or no. In his preface, Bolt tells us that More, quote, knew where he began and left off, what areas of himself he could yield to the encroachments of his enemies, and what to the encroachment of those he loved. He was able to retire from those areas in wonderfully good order, but at length he was asked to retreat from that final area where he located his self. The only way for More to save himself is to deny his conscience, the thing that makes him who he truly is. He refuses to do this, although it costs him his life. The great poet and champion of Indian freedom, Rabindranath Tagore, explored the same fundamental dilemma. what to do when the world appears to reject what is most important to you, what to do when others appear too ready to negotiate what for you is non-negotiable. Tagore wrote, "If they answer not your call, walk alone. If they are afraid and cower, mutely facing the wall, O you unlucky one, open your mind and speak out alone." Tagore's challenge to us, that we must be prepared to walk alone at times in our lives, has inspired many, Gandhi among them. I know that I'm presenting you with what seems to be a contradiction, suggesting that you be inquisitive, objective, tolerant, and open-minded, while at the same time encouraging you to think clearly and carefully about those things that define you, the things about yourself that you can't abandon to the pressure of popular opinion or yield to the encroachments of power, status, or money. This seeming contradiction resolves itself if we consider that the ultimate objective of all scholarship is the truth. The motto of this university is Veritas et Utilitas, truth and usefulness. Both are essential and to be desired, but truth comes first. Our scholarship, our search for truth, should be lifelong. And while the scope of that search is without limits, surely the ultimate objective is to know ourselves, to understand our essential natures, what makes us who we are, to identify the values for which we are prepared to walk alone. Welcome to the Republic of Letters.